Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these very cool Dinomania figures to take a look at, and this time we have a gigantic figure, like one of the largest Dinomania figures that I have in my collection, maybe the second largest next to their Jumbo Spinosaurus, but this is their Stegosaurus, and it's huge, like ridiculously huge. But I love the fact that it's huge. It's so cool to have such large dinosaur models like this out on the market and have the option to still have something so large like this to include in my collection that's not a resin model. Because to normally get a dinosaur model this huge, it's either a resin model, which is very fragile, or a vinyl model, which even vinyl models often aren't this large. And vinyl models are pretty durable, I do like those, but these ones are like ridiculously durable because they're that soft kind of squishy material. Like I could take this outside and throw it in front of a car driving by and it probably wouldn't get damaged. And what I like about this one, on top of being huge, of course, is the fact that it kind of resembles a Lost World Jurassic Park Stegosaurus, sort of. The sculpt, of course, isn't perfectly replicating that Stegosaurus type look, but for the most part, I feel like it has a similar look, definitely a similar paint scheme. The coloration absolutely reminds me of the Lost World Jurassic Park Stegosaurus, so very, very cool anytime I can get any type of a figure or a model that reminds me of a Jurassic Park style dinosaur, especially one like the Stegosaurus that we haven't had very many models or figures of. As far as a Lost World Jurassic Park version goes. Definitely something that I'm excited about. So, let's go ahead, jump to a closer look at this gigantic figure right now. This is going to be an interesting one to review because it's so gigantic. But you can see, starting up here at the head sculpt, we have some pretty nice looking skin texture. It's not overly vibrant or anything, but it looks okay. You can also see we have a few osteoderms and stuff poking up here on the head of the Stegosaurus. We also have the glass eye look for this one, just like we had with the Compy that we recently reviewed, except this one doesn't really have much detail within the eye. It's just a straight up black eye, which is something that you actually often see on Stegosaurus. You do see the black eye look a lot, especially on herbivores. As you lead down here into the beak, you can see the beak is sculpted out pretty nicely, where it actually has some nice detailing to it, painted in a way where it highlights the detail nicely for you to see, because you can see we have a nice dark wash to the model, something that you always see on Dinomania releases. We also have the mouth sculpted in an open position where we can kind of see the tongue inside the mouth right there. Nice variations of green, as well as we have darker greens up here that transition very smoothly to a nice lighter green. We have very large scales up here on the top of the head, much larger than what you see through the course of the body. And in fact, actually, most of the body is more of like a skin texture type of a look rather than a scale look, more of like an elephant skin type of a look. But as you continue to lead along the upper side of the Stegosaurus, you continue to have those kind of larger scales. I would call them more like osteoderm-like scales. They're just very, very big, bumpy scales moving along. And every once in a while, you'll find a few that are kind of painted with sort of like a light off-white type of a tone of color, so you have some alternate coloration as far as they go. The plates look really cool as well as they begin to appear, and you can see that they increase in size, of course, like you would expect to see on a Stegosaurus. We also have variation of color through the course of the model as far as the plates go, because you can see they start out with this darker brown, transition to this lighter tone up for the tips. As you continue to move along the plates and you get further in, you can see that we actually transition through a few different variations of browns. You can really notice it on this large plate where we have a darker brown, a lighter brown, and then transition to this kind of like a khaki type color up there at the top. And the actual detailing of the plates moving through looks really nice. We have all kinds of cracks and crevices and everything present for the plates on the Stegosaurus, which is also a very nice touch. As you move down here to the underside of the neck and leading into the throat, you can see all kinds of skin wrinkles, skin creases and everything. Really nice looking paintwork again, as we have the lighter tone, that lighter green for the underside, and also some dark washes have been applied to really highlight all of that really nice looking skin detail. As you continue to move up here into the body, you can kind of make out the shoulder blade a little bit right there. You can also pick out the rib cage right in that area. And again, the skin texture looks really nice because it's been highlighted so beautifully with that dark wash. You can see all of the really nice looking detailing as far as the skin texture goes throughout the course of the model. You can also see again more of those osteoderms moving along the upper side, more of those alternately painted osteoderms, as well as we have that off-white, which is so bright the camera does not like looking at it. But as you move down here into the front leg, you can see the skin stretching off of the stomach right there. So nice muscle definition moving down through the course of the leg. You can see the skin texture looks really, really nice moving down. We have a nicely sculpted foot. The nails kind of have like a light greenish sort of a color applied to them to sort of give them some alternate coloration from the foot itself. And you can see the toes and everything look really nice. As we move back up here into the stomach, you can get a good look at what the detailing of the stomach region looks like. Again, all the incredible sculpt work included within. You've got more skin wrinkles and skin folds, especially because this leg is trailing, so it would be stretching that skin quite nicely right there. And then as you move back up, you again lead up into those plates. We follow that same similar style of coloration, and you see that coloration on the outer side of the plates and on the inside of the plates as far as the different tones of color, and then that lighter tip for the plates moving along. And then as you move back down, you can make out the hip bone right there. You can also see some nice muscle definition in the thigh moving down the course of the leg. And then as you lead all the way down, you've got again a nice rear foot sculpt. The nails again have that lighter green sort of coloration to them. So we have a very, very green color for our Stegosaurus pretty much all over except for up into the plates. As you lead back here toward the tail, this is the area where we find our seam. We usually have a seam because they're kind of stuffed, so you have to have that area where you would connect the body part after stuffing the dinosaur. This is the area for that. We have it right here in the tail. As you lead back here a little bit further, you continue to see again that really nice looking texturing to the skin, the really nice creases and everything, and the nice dark wash, making sure to highlight all of that detail. As the plates begin to decrease in size, moving out here toward the tail, you lead out and you find yourself with some thagomizers out here. If I can try to maneuver this in a way where we can actually get a good look at those thagomizers. There we go. We've got the thagomizers out here at the end of the tail. Some more bumpy scales running along the upper side of the tail. You can see we also have like alternate tones of color for the thagomizers as we start out with some darker greens. Almost see some variations of browns leading out into that kind of off-white. And of course the dark wash applied highlights even the detailing of the thagomizers, showing off that they have some nice cracks and crevices. Again, nice realistic looking detail throughout. The underside of the Stegosaurus as well has all kinds of really nice looking cracks and crevices in the skin texture, skin folds, skin wrinkles, and everything going on here. Again, that nice dark wash really highlighting the detail through the course of the model. You can also actually see a seam here for the neck. I didn't pick up on that up here. They must have applied that really nicely. Oh yeah, it is there. It's just actually really subtle. It's a little bit more noticeable on the underside, but I actually didn't even notice it at first when we were glancing through. And then you have the head here. The opposing side of the head looks pretty much the same as what we had just seen on the initial side. Moving back into the neck, you can see the same style of skin texture, the same sort of skin wrinkles and everything moving through. The plates look great, just like we saw on the initial side. The only real difference you're really going to see over here compared to what we saw on the initial side would be the positioning of the legs, because the rear leg is stepping forward more so than the opposing leg. The front leg here is kind of trailing behind as the Stegosaurus takes a step there with the opposing leg. So that's the only real big difference that you see on this side compared to the initial side. But other than that, everything looks pretty much the same, just absolutely awesome all over. The Stegosaurus, again, is just so huge. It absolutely is one of my favorite Dinomania figures ever. Definitely one that I am really, really happy to have here, adding to my collection. And definitely a huge recommendation if you are a fan of Stegosaurus and you want a massive one in your collection. This is a great, great way to go. Now, getting a measurement for this one is definitely going to be interesting. But for a length, you are looking at, if we get that tape way out there on the tail, to the snout, about 23.5 or around 59 and a half centimeters, maybe approaching 60 centimeters. And the height is huge with these plates. I think maybe that plate might be, actually, this plate would probably be the highest point. You probably can't even see what I'm doing right now, but I'd say it's around 12.5 inches or about 32, maybe 31.5, 32 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity. So a little bit complicated for me to measure and actually show you guys, but it's huge. Trust me, take my word for it. And if you don't want to take my word for it, then for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Dinomania Stegosaurus. And if you didn't believe me before about this being huge, then hopefully this visual right here will prove my point, because next to these figures, everything here looks so tiny compared to this gigantic Stegosaurus. And then for a comparison next to another really popular Stegosaurus, we have the Nanmu Stegosaurus, and you can definitely see that there is clearly no comparison when it comes to a size between these two, because the Nanmu Stegosaurus is actually even a little bit further forward than what we see on the Dinomania version. So if we actually put this like right under, even though it's not quite right under, you can see again, it is so tiny compared to this gigantic Dinomania version. To continue to show you how massive this is, here is the extreme damage T-Rex in front of the Stegosaurus. So of course this means the Rex is going to appear a little bit larger here because it's a little bit further forward than the Stegosaurus. And you can still see the Stegosaurus just absolutely is huge compared to it, like completely annihilates that T-Rex in size. For another comparison, I would normally try to bring in more Stegosaurus models and stuff to kind of display next to this Stegosaurus, but I really don't think that that is going to matter at this point. It's not going to make much of a difference, because at this point all we really need to do is show off how huge this is, and you can definitely get a pretty good idea of that here next to the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon, the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, and the Schleich Diabloceratops, because yet again this Stegosaurus towers over all of them. And then for one final comparison, we have the Mattel Velociraptor and Mattel Dilophosaurus. Again, I've been using quite a few of these different figures for like numerous repeated comparisons, because I feel like they're really popular releases, stuff that most people would at least have one of. And in situations like this where it's almost baffling to try to come up with figures that you should compare next to it, I usually go to the go-tos when it comes to the randoms and stuff that I feel like, you know, are probably our best chance of having something that you might already own. So the Mattel figures are definitely good ones that you've either probably already have one of, or at the very least have seen. So it should help to show you again that this Stegosaurus is beyond huge. So this Dinomania Stegosaurus is super, super cool. The moment I pulled this one out of the box, I knew it was going to be one of my favorites, and potentially my favorite overall when it comes to the Dinomania line, because it just is so beautiful to look at, as far as like the massive size, the really nice looking skin texture, and the really nice paint job. I love the tones of color used on this. I love green Stegosaurus. It's just something that I've always been a big fan of. I don't know if it just stems, honestly, from the Lost World Jurassic Park and the Stegosaurus being green on there, but I just always think green looks so great on Stegosaurus. It may even be from Walking with Dinosaurs, who knows? But the tones of green used on it are really nicely done, really appealing to the eye. Super smooth transitions throughout, again, just like we saw in the Compy. So the paintwork of Dinomania, I always really like it. I always think they do a great job as far as like the transitioning of colors and the actual application of the paint. And of course, using the dark washes. Something I'm always a big fan of are dark washes, because I just feel like it amps up realism so much, and you can see that here on the Stegosaurus as well. And leading up into the plates, you continue to see so much really nice color variation again as we transition through. There's never any real laziness or anything like that when it comes to a Dinomania paint job, because they give you quite a bit of color on your figures. The sculpt is also really quite nicely done overall. I feel like together the sculpt and paint job sort of resembles a Lost World Jurassic Park Stegosaurus. Not perfectly, of course, but has kind of the basic gist of it, so I do like that aspect as well. And through the course of the entire model, it does have a really nice, very highly detailed appearance. Of course, being one of those soft, squishy models, you do have the seams and stuff that you have to contend with whenever you have a figure like this. No matter who makes it, you usually have that kind of seam-like look where they have to connect the pieces and stuff the model and everything. But I think that is normally the type of thing that you come into purchasing the models knowing is going to exist, so it's just kind of the way they work, I guess. We also have that kind of glass eye look on this one, just like we did on the Compy, and just like you usually do when it comes to any Dinomania release. And of course, the fact that it is absolutely gigantic is always really fun as well. So, just like I said in the Compy review, Dinomania is currently looking for someone, some distributor, some store, some website somewhere here in the United States to sell the Dinomania product and help us here in the United States acquire these a little bit easier, because I know there are tons of people that would love to pick them up. I have many people normally, after I post a Dinomania review, contacting me about purchasing them. You can purchase them from Dinomania normally, but it's just such a hassle to do so when you're here in the United States, because the shipping cost is going to be really high to get the models here and everything. So it can be a task at times to acquire them from Dinomania directly. So again, if anybody out there happens to have a store, website, anything like that, that they might be interested in working with Dinomania and stocking the models, I would love to be able to hook you up with them and converse about that possibility, and again, acquire yourself the opportunity to help us here in the United States get the Dinomania models a little bit easier here into our collections. So again, make sure you check the links that I will include in the description to the Dinomania website, as well as where you can contact them to potentially be that person that starts to sell Dinomania here in the United States. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.